Buffy! Yay!
Sarah Buffy. Hey, hi.
Hello. Happy to see you here on our Flocking Together series. You're one of our little birdies. I'm so excited to talk to you today. So we have a couple things I want to dig into because of your relationship with Soulbird. You and I know each other. We're best buds. It's so
Yes,
fun to
we
be able to
do.
work
Yes.
together
Yes.
in this space. But before we get to how you started to connect with Soulbird, what has been your journey up until this point? You're from Michigan. You were in New Orleans for a long time. What have you been studying? What have been some of your passions over the past several years?
Ooh, okay, that's a big question. Yes, I'm from mid-Michigan and I was born and raised here. I'm here now. But for the past, oh my gosh, just under 20 years, I've lived in many other different places. I've lived in Ecuador, in Mexico, Chicago, Seattle, New Orleans,
Wow.
and just really found myself along the way and found really great relationships, friends, and my professional passions, my personal passions that I have, some of which I have turned into professional passions.
Well, which ones are those? Where's the overlap bit?
Yeah, sure. So I really just genuinely love working with people, ideally in person. So these past couple of years have been rough in that regard, amongst others. But I remember one of my most pivotal working experiences was I lived in Tijuana, Mexico, and I worked with women who were teaching peers, other women in their community, nutrition and gardening, of which I didn't really know at all. And I was supposed to do an evaluation for their program. And really what it meant is that I just tagged along with them to their classes and asked them a bunch of questions and took in this incredible amount of information, the wisdom that they had just themselves and that they had been handed down from generations. And I learned a lot about, the country of Mexico and immigration. And it was just a totally brand new angle of looking at my own life and my life in the United States. And it was just such an enriching experience. And I formed deep, lifelong relationships with people that I still love, some of whom I'm still in communication with. And I just wanted to be among wonderful people in my work. And it was also in that experience where I really cemented the knowing that there's nothing wrong with people. Right? There's so much, we can look at different countries, our own country, and say, like, there's so much poverty, there's violence, there's all this stuff. And it's not the people, right? It's the systems that are in place that put people in corners. And I could go on a major soapbox there, right? But I think a lot of what I was taught growing up in a very white, very middle class education system is that everything is the way it's supposed to be. And if you are not to a certain standard of living, that's on you, right? And this experience, amongst many other experiences, just blew that crap out of the water and really uneducated me in that way. And so I became really interested in systems change, and I became a community organizer after that, trying to work with community and learn from people, who were struggling, who were on the receiving end of so many inequities, because they know what the solutions are and they know what they need more so than I do, right? And working to kind of organize people to build power, organize ideas to really target where in the system things are going wrong, purposefully or not purposefully, and make big change that has real impact in people's lives. And so with that wanting, I was doing a program evaluation in Mexico, then went to Chicago and New Orleans to do community organizing, and then realized that I was kind of hitting like a professional wall. Where can I go after this? How can I grow? And I decided to get my master's in public health and master's in social work,
Mhm.
which took me to Seattle, which now gives me a lot of different tools to use when I'm trying to do my systems change work and working with
Mhm.
people. But, you know, again, the more I grow, the more I'm like, inherently, I think all people know these things. And the more I get in touch with my heart, and the more I
Mhm.
can quiet the noise around what I'm supposed to do, or here's this theory, etc., the more I can hear and relate to what I've always known, which is, again, people. People
Mhm.
know. People
Mm.
just follow your heart, follow your intuition. And so that's what I try to do when I work professionally, in my personal life, as a parent. I have a 1-year-old
Mhm.
daughter. So that's the big loop around your question.
Yeah, I love it, and I know why we've collaborated on a lot of projects, but that just even grounded a little even more, right? Soulbird is all about the people.
Yeah.
We do work with people who are wrapped up in systems, right?
Yes.
We'll hear from my colleague Dr. Kennedy in a couple series around the language she uses, that we've got youth navigating threatening systems. We
Yes.
don't
Yep.
have at-risk youth, right? The problem is not the
Mhm.
people. It's the structures that we create, and then people navigating those structures. We can see a lot of challenges. So
Yep.
I know you're bilingual. I know people are at the center. I know community organizing has been a part of your path, but you started to speak about around the organizational development. It's really interesting to me to hear that the time you spent in Tijuana was a listening, kind of the heart opening, the mind opening, and there was a lot of unlearning to be done, right? That's what we talk a lot about with the work that we do. Our philosophy is we got to unlearn, learn, and then we got to practice. We have to really integrate that learning, but that unlearning piece is really huge. And it seems like you had a lot of experiences to make you an excellent fit for my first invitation for you into Soulbird, which was, what the hell are we doing over here? We were doing a lot of great work. We're doing a lot of great things, but there was a level of disorganization and a level of not knowing, right?
Sure.
Um, so I had to go on a phase of I hired you as an organizational consultant to come in and to listen deeply to everything going on at Soulbird, to understand, what different projects and the work we were trying to do. Um, and that was, I think, a moment where you were able to, where I had the opportunity to be put at the center of a conversation, where I could be heard and seen, and your gifts about staying present with me in that process were really, really, they're really priceless, because you were not only able to support me and wrapping my head around a lot, you were able to give me back concrete tangibles about what next steps, what next steps we should be doing. You helped me hire Ben, who a lot of us know now, who's our director of operations, right? So where does that, I mean, you spoke a little bit about where it comes from, but how does that continue to fuel you, your organizational mind, but keeping people at the center? How does that still create energy for you to keep doing work, keep saying yes to things?
Yeah, that's a great question. I didn't realize that I was skilled in that kind of thinking until, honestly, a few years ago.
Hmm.
So I'm going to try to be succinct in the way I answer this. I've never been asked this question before.
Hmm.
um, I don't know if I know the answer. Not my own experience.
What was the question even?
Yeah, what was the question? No, no, no. I have spent so much of my life just assuming that everybody knows more than I do,
Wow.
and that people leading organizations or in any
Mm,
position of authority are there because intellectually they deserve it and they're like
mm,
on some sort of pedestal, which again, in my unlearning, is like, oh, wow, we know that that's very much not true. Like, look at some of the leaders, and you know what I'm trying to say. Um, and I think a lot of that is because I grew up as a girl, and
mm,
as women. And, if you're of any marginalized identity, you
mhm,
really take the messages about you and your intelligence and you internalize them and you start believing them yourself. So I'm
mhm,
still trying to unlearn that and be like, you know what? This idea that I'm having, I might actually be right.
mm, mm,
Or it, So I've sat in so many meetings and so many contexts observing because I didn't feel confident enough to say anything, and had just this feeling like this is a little bit off, or
Mm.
this planning session is a little bit off. Why isn't anybody asking this larger question? Oh, they must already have answered it. They must know I'm not going to say anything. Turns out that that's how my brain works in this particular way where I am called or whatever. I just, this is how I work, to zoom out of the detail and see something from 30,000 feet, right? Or you're like in a little rocket ship on Earth. There's all these details, so many distractions going on, and all of a sudden you zoom up and you can see the whole picture. Not saying I'm not saying like I'm some sort of prophet or anything. It's really just like, I'm talking like in an organization.
Yeah,
Right?
yeah.
It's really easy to get caught up in the details of the day to day. There's so many fires to put out. And there's so many things that just trip us up. We go and we study one thing. I studied public health and social work. They're very similar. I didn't study organizational studies. I'm not a professional strategic planner. I'm not a human resources person. But I can, the questions that I have, and this is going back to your other question, is how can I like remove the noise, remove the details, remove people in a meeting trying to posture themselves and show that they know what they're talking about. Removing all that stuff in my head that's saying, you don't know what you're talking about, and just kind of listening. And what I hear when I'm able to do that are the big questions that I can then ask and say, Sarah, for example, right? Forget about this project at Soulbird. Forget about this project at Soulbird. What are you really trying to do? Right? What is your vision from your heart? From there, right? What do we need in place to move you towards that vision? Right? And then some of my experience of like working in organizations come in. A mission, vision, values, right? A lot of these things that I have learned are valuable, right? And then we set up a plan to tackle those things in bite-sized chunks, rather than trying to do them while you're like running around distracted by all the details. And then I think that this is the most important part of the whole thing is, where can we get you or whoever I'm working with support? Again, I think so many of us walk around thinking, I'm the only person that doesn't know how to do this. I should know how to do everything, right? You started your organization. I should know how to do all of this. Why can't I figure this out? It's a whole nother professional field. People study their whole lives to do these 20 things that you were trying to juggle. There could be 20 people doing them and advising you. And so it's really, again, just kind of pulling up for 30,000 foot, figuring out what is at the heart driving this, setting a vision, and then breaking it down into what are the things we need, how are we going to get there, where do you need support, let's make a plan, and I'm going to hold your hand.
Yes. So that's what nailed it for me, the notion of holding hand. And I want to share this because I think when we think about people work, that's one realm, and then we think about systems work, that's another. But what I really hear, you're really bridging, you're bringing the people and the humanity in that systems view. And a lot of the times while we were working together, I don't know how you would name this, but I don't know if it's the emotional intelligence or the social emotional capacity you have. But each time I got stuck on something, I would feel not just the stuckness, like a squish in my brain when we would be talking about math or data or things like that, but I would feel emotions just well, and I would sense tears coming. I would sense like panic, right? And each time you told me, you said, "This is data. This is okay. This is data." Notice, you always connect me back to my body. What are you noticing? Take a deep breath. Let's take it slow. But it wasn't about let's push it aside and just lean into emotions, right? And also wasn't throw your emotions away so we can get to this work. You really integrated that. And I think that speaks to the people power that you're talking about, the human aspect of organizational development, right? I wasn't shamed for what was coming up. You were able to notice it, and move beyond it and make a plan to strategize around it, which to me said, I can be my full self. I can be my full self with my insecurities and my
Yeah.
dyscalculia and not understanding budgets and things. And that doesn't disqualify me from being in a leadership role. What it does say is, oh, great. What other support do we need here at the table? Right. So
Yes.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I think it's a gift you bring to the work. I think if people were to work with you, they can expect a really holistic approach,
Yeah.
which is I don't know. I don't see that happening everywhere, you know. So I
Yeah.
just wanted to name that. And then I'm also thinking about right now your big role with us is your project manager for some work we're doing here in Ohio
Yeah.
with Kathy Forte, who we'll hear from in a couple weeks, I'm sure. Um,
Yeah. Forte.
so yeah, so tell us a little bit about that project and your role. Again, this isn't your content expertise, but this is where
Yeah.
you're herding the cats and helping us implement. So tell us a little bit about that project.
Yeah. Yeah. Great. Can I just say one thing? Speak
Mhm.
to what you
Yeah, yeah.
talked about emotional thing is if we could all think back to being in grade school, I'm sure most of us had a really similar experience of, the teacher is teaching a subject and there's only we all have different ways that we learn and we're all skilled in different things, right? But there's like one standard when you're in school. There's literally letter grades to tell you how good you are at something. And if
Mhm.
you come to something like math, for example, that you struggle with, it creates this, this more than I do. So I might even be
Mhm.
saying this, wrong, but you build up this trauma response over time. It's just like, ouch, that hurts. Like, or little t
Mhm.
trauma, like,
Mhm.
I don't know math. I feel stupid. And then you feel
Mhm.
shamed in it because when you were
Mhm.
young, that's what happens. And it turns out, okay, you don't know math. No big deal.
Mhm.
You're so talented in your field and you bring so much
Mm.
heart to this work. So we can't skip over that emotion when we're
Mhm.
working with you as the leader to envision what you want for your organization. Let's lean into it, let you express that, let you
Mhm.
realize that, you know what, you're not going to be shamed now. It's fine if you don't know math. We don't have to push through this. Like the
Yeah.
feelings of discouragement and
Mm.
shame, again, those are there to be listened to. You can learn from those, but we're not in school anymore. You don't have to
Mhm.
push through and try to get an A there. You just have to say, this is where I hurt. I'm going to express that hurt and we're going to find support for me there. And this is where I thrive. This is where
Yeah.
I'm going to sit. This is where I'm going to own it and I'm just going to roll with it.
Mhm. Yeah.
So,
Love it.
yeah.
Ah, yes. I'm
Um,
hearing Brene Brown vibes with lean into the vulnerability, the emotion. Ah, yes,
nice.
yes, yes.
Yeah, I got a Brene book somewhere
Oh,
behind me.
there we go. Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, the work I do with you right now on in a project with Soulbird, I'm so lucky to work with you, Kathy Forte, and Ben. We're working with the Ohio Department of Developmental Disabilities on a 2-year project that is really trying to bring trauma sensitive mindfulness education or wisdom to family members with someone in their loved one's circle who have a developmental disability label. And I am not the content expert here. That is where you, Sarah, come into play. And Kathy Forte, I just met Kathy earlier this year, but you've known Kathy for a long time. She has such a long background working with families and folks with developmental disabilities label and just brings like such a wisdom of working with
Mm.
people and a love and the pairing of you two walking with families through this content in a really
Mm.
human way is something that I feel really grateful to be a part of. And the
Mhm.
thing, again, like what I'm doing is help organize our vision and help organize our work plan, really.
Mhm.
Saying,
Yeah.
okay,
Yeah.
Sarah and Kathy, what's your goal with this work? What's your big vision? And then saying, like, okay, what information do we need from families? Because we always want to hear from the people first about what they need rather than assume. What
Mhm.
information do you need from these families? Where are the holes in our minds so that we can start developing a program or content that will really resonate with people, that will match what they're actually struggling with,
Mhm.
how they learn, what time in the day they can come together to learn, how often they can come together to learn, what are some barriers that keep them from learning, what are their hopes and dreams from this work. And so I'm getting a little lost in my own answer, but in a nutshell, what I'm doing is two things. I'm making a longer term plan, so you all don't have to get caught up in those details. I can be at the 30,000 level, see what you're saying, bring it up, synthesize it, put it together in some organized timeline and like little chunks, and move us through and facilitate us through that project. So y'all just keep being brilliant in what you know. And then the second thing I'm doing is leading the research piece. So I do have some background in research and interviewing and data analysis. And so I have been leading us in developing an online survey for families to take, and developing an interview protocol for Kathy to call some of these family members who have volunteered to talk to her more, to get more in-depth information that will, again, really help us help others.
Yeah, I love it. I love it. It does feel like a real strong three-legged stool, which I've used that analogy before, but knowing that Kathy, we're in the research phase right now, right? She's doing interviews, she's connecting with families. I'm able to sit in that ideating seat, right? I don't know if you've ever done the leadership compass, but I think I'm a West, which is idea, the implementing of, I need a teammate for that, right? So it really does feel holistic. And I have to admit, I'm a doer. I want to get out there. I want to connect. I want to play. So it's been an exercise for me to sit back and be a part of these conversations of crafting the interview and the survey questions and those things. I kind of get impatient with the data part, but I know how important it is. And I love that not only your organizational brain is here, but again, you bring that heart center. So I'm excited to share with people what we discover and what we roll out. Stay tuned, right? We're not there yet. But I know that organizational development and consulting, working with us, being a mom, being a wife, a partner, these are only some of what you do. And you're super passionate about the climate crisis right now. I don't want to bring us into a negative rabbit hole, but I know that fire fuels you. But if you could think about what's emerging, what possibilities are emerging for you into the future here, what would you name? What are you most excited about? What are you really angling towards as far as how your profession and passion continue to evolve?
Yeah, gosh. These are the things that I try to spend my time thinking about in my free time.
Yeah.
You sent me a great podcast. I lost my phone this morning.
Yes.
I can't remember what it's called, but the woman brings up this concept of we're at an evolutionary point as human beings. And, we either go extinct or we survive and we thrive better than we ever have. And that idea calls each of us to evolve personally as well, to be the people to eventually, hopefully survive and thrive, right? To be the society that survives and thrives. And for me, to be honest, I would just love to spend all of my time with my family, with my friends, out in nature. I really want to learn how to farm. I play music, I sing, I write. I want to do that stuff all the time. But I am also realizing that there is no way I would be happy if I weren't doing some sort of activism. And yes, the climate crisis takes up a lot of my thinking right now. But whether it's the climate crisis or, health inequities or the work that we do together or really anything else, at the core, it's really about just humanness and coming back to our humanness. And so whatever I do in the future, I'll get more specific in a second. I want to make sure that I am the person, the vision of the person that I want to be when I'm doing whatever work I'm doing. I want to be human. I want to be myself. I want to be authentic in whatever work. I'm not trying to climb the professional ladder here and put on a suit. No thanks. So I want to be my authentic self. I want to help others be their authentic self and move us toward whatever larger goal we're called to, as long as it's in line with that humanness and that human thriving nature, human children respecting vision of the future that I have. I'm in, honestly. And if I like doing the work, if it's okay, if it's something that's taking me away from my daughter and my husband and my friends, then I want to enjoy what I'm doing. Right. I'm not trying to sit in that math space of like, through like, what are my gifts that I can bring here? That's what I'm saying. So to the more specific, I just was offered a big contract. I'm not going to talk about it too much because I haven't signed it yet. It's public health related, and it's related to strengthening and diversifying the public health workforce across the nation, and making sure that people recognize what public health means, which, spoiler alert, health is not just going to the doctor. It's about our entire well-being, physical, emotional, spiritual. It's connected to everything. And so I'm really looking forward to sort of bringing myself to that work and seeing what other gifts people have and organizing us in a way to make actual impact. And then I really want to, again, I want to work part-time on a farm. I want to learn about the land.
Yes.
I'm also interested in doing some more coaching, individual coaching for people who I feel aligned in purpose with, to help them bring out their gifts and just unleash them on the world. You mentioned this a little bit. I feel really passionate about getting other moms, especially other white middle-class moms like myself, activated in climate work, especially thinking about it from an environmental justice lens and how the climate crisis very much disproportionately impacts, people of color, indigenous communities. I think it's really important that the most privileged among us recognize our role in this, and are really, really activated doing something about it, again from a place of connection and love, and not yes, it's scary, but not terror. We have to be driven by this calling to be our bigger selves. And so that's some work on the side that it's work. I mean, you're on this listserv, and, and we talk to each other. We're starting a book club, and it's really just trying to grow as people and see how we can be supportive of one another and walk forward in this work, in this life, in a supported higher calling kind of way, where there's joy. Where there's joy, purpose, and connection. Boom. Call me.
Call me, pay me, call me. I love it. Liz, I heard great advice when I was a young lad. Find out what the world needs, find out what your gifts are, and find where they intersect. And that's how you figure out your profession, your calling. And what I just heard were several different world needs, several different of your gifts, and a lot of those intersections. So thank you for offering some of those gifts to Soulbird. Thank you for the work you do with Climate Mamas and all the environmental work. And good luck in your new venture. And I really hope that people have heard you a little bit here, and that they know that you're out there in the world to connect and to support and walk with people on their journey. Not just with us, but with anyone who's interested. And what do you say? Joy. What were the three?
I don't remember what I said. I'm just kidding. Purpose, human. Really, it's connection, right? Purpose, and joy. Maybe that.
You're purpose driven. You're joy filled. Thanks for talking with me today. I love you very much. And
love you too.
We'll see you out in the world.
Thanks for the opportunity, and thanks for all the gifts and the love you bring to the world. You're incredible.
Yes.
All right. Bye. Love you.